there. You're early. That's okay. I'm just still getting my coffee ready before we get into our chat about everything I read in November. Welcome to Vlogmas Day 3 as well. Like, you know, I hope, you know, you have your drink ready. Right now, I am just drinking coffee with some Kahlua in it because it has been one of those weeks and I just need a warm, comforting drink. And I've already started having my holiday mugs. This one is a really cute one with London on it. But yeah, the books I read in November it was interesting. So October I had all those books that I read, just about everything. It was nonstop, a book in my hand at all times. And then there was November where I think I actually read the first book that I've rated 1 star in about 5 or 6 years. And it was interesting. Like, this book it was an experience from start to finish, and I honestly should have DNF'd it, but when I get to that book, I will go into it more with you guys on all my reasons why I actually read it. But until then, I hope you have your drink ready and let's get into it. November was an interesting month. I actually read a lot of really good books this month. One of the first ones that I read was The Many Lives of Mama Love by Lara Hardin. And this was actually one of the book club picks for my in-person book club. And, you know, I'm not really someone who would pick up a memoir. I find like autobiographies and memoirs a little bit difficult for me to read, like the physical copy of it, but I came to the realization that when I kind of listen to it, it's just like a podcast. So for this one and my book club, they love memoirs. I think this is like the second or third kind of like non-fiction book that we've done for the year. So I made an effort to make sure that I was listening to this one, I should say, instead of reading like a physical copy of it. And this was, like I said, a 4-star read for me. So I wouldn't have read this otherwise, but it's essentially about Lara Hardin, and she's recounting her slide from this like bougie soccer mom wearing like the Lululemon Define jacket and leggings and everything, dropping her kids off and doing all the things, to an opioid addict, to becoming a jailhouse shot caller, and then her unlikely comeback as she ends up being a ghostwriter for these like really big people like Desmond Tutu, and a lot of these memoirs and stuff that we know, she actually had a hand in writing them. And I loved every moment of this memoir from start to finish. She's really real and raw in it, and it gives you a really good understanding of how someone can kind of have that backward slide into doing stuff. So she goes from, like, she loves her children so dearly, and she has 3 of them, and 2 of them are from a previous marriage, and she's split custody with them, and one of them is from her marriage to her current husband. And you can tell how she very much is like, I need to do whatever I can do to keep the lights on for my kid and make sure this baby is okay, but also like she wants drugs. And it's really interesting to see. It really does follow from like immediately after she's arrested to through to her becoming a ghostwriter. So we don't get a lot of like, we get a little bit of information about how she was introduced to drugs and what happened there, but it really is about her fight to get out of the legal system and proceed forward. And I think it's really interesting. She had a line in it where she talks about how difficult it is for people to actually claw their way out of the legal system once they're in it. She very specifically talks about how she managed to get early release and has to go do these parenting classes to get her son back, and she has a year to complete everything. However, while she's in jail, there is no way for her to do this parenting class because it's not offered while she's in jail. But if she does it after she comes out of her sentence, then she does not have the opportunity to, or like enough time to complete it. So she's essentially set up to fail. And there's also a scene where someone calls and her parole officer and says she did something that could, like, you know, if you violate your parole, she could end up back in jail. And it's like, she didn't do that. She was nowhere near what they were saying she was doing. So I think it's very interesting to kind of hear her kind of side of how things happen and how it's just this endless cycle throughout for her. And I just really kind of felt for her throughout the entire book. It's beautifully done. You root for her the entire time. You know this is someone who just made like one bad decision and it kind of messed up her entire life. And I think it's also like not lost on me that like she is a white woman, so it was difficult for her as a white woman, but for people of color it is so much harder because, you know, we don't necessarily get that person who's going to give us a second chance or look past our transgressions, real or imagined. It's just kind of this endless cycle that gets perpetuated. So I think a really good book, a really interesting read. I love to hear about how she kind of, the imposter syndrome that she talks about a little bit as well as she kind of progresses through her eventual career as a ghostwriter. But essentially it was a 4-star read, and it's making me think that I need to find a couple more memoirs that I want to read or that intrigue me, just because it's like a podcast. You're interviewing it's a brief moment in someone's life and you're finding out kind of a snapshot of that, as opposed to an autobiography, which is sometimes like life till death. After that, I read A Holly Jolly Ever After by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This is actually the second book in the Christmas Knot series, so it is like a very holiday romance thing, even though this one is set kind of like in the summer. Essentially what it is they are filming these kind of Hallmark-esque Christmas movies. The one that is, I think the channel is called like the Hope Channel, so very much like Hallmark movie, kind of, you know, girl goes to small town, meets some man. It's, you know, she used to be a high-powered attorney and she learns to slow down and live her life, like total Hallmark movie vibes, except for the fact that the head producer and almost everyone on the cast used to work in the adult film industry or is like adult film industry adjacent. So it's like spicy Christmas movies or spicy Hallmark movies. So A Holly Jolly Ever After follows an actress who kind of was really famous when she was a child and then proceeded to kind of fall into doing the made-for-TV Hope Channel movies for a really long period of time. She was very much this like buttoned-up girl. It is kind of hinted, I don't remember exactly what it is, but she is very religious, or her family is kind of very religious, so she does kind of have that mentality of she was married and you're not supposed to divorce, and she loves her husband, and you know, she's there to serve her husband at all times. And then there is her co-star in it, which is he used to be a member of a boy band, and he now owns this line of pizza shops called Slice Slice Baby, and he's just kind of happy just to do his like pizza thing and do what needs to be done there and just kind of like live his life. And he finds out that she is cast as his co-star, and he had like the biggest crush on her previously, and then they start going through kind of blocking for how they're going to do this movie in this kind of town that's like idyllic. It's Christmas Knot, it's where they film all these Christmas movies. It's kind of like set up year round to be just ready to go for a Christmas shot. And while they're going through blocking with the intimacy coordinator, they're going through like this big like sex scene, and she just kind of like fakes an orgasm, and they're kind of like, what was that? Because like there was no way that was like real. Like they're just kind of like miming, and like they're trying to tell her like, you know, like we're acting in this instance, but like don't act so over the top. You need to act as if you're just like how you normally would have an orgasm, or like what is kind of like regular for you, as opposed to this like large over the top thing that she does. So, and then through that he finds out that she has never kind of felt any pleasure while having sex with her husband, and well, with her ex-husband. They are divorced at this point, and they kind of like figure out that while they are play acting intimate acts for the movie, that he is actually going to help her figure out how to have an orgasm or what that looks like for her so that she can act better. So it's all about like they're doing like the real deed while they, for when they're, so that she knows what to do when they're simulating it for film. Because it's not a porn shoot, it's just acting out sex for the movie. And from there, she starts to realize that she kind of has feelings for him, and they do a whole bunch of different things, and her family swoops in at one point. You have the ex-husband kind of coming in as well, being like, why are you divorcing me? Because he's also part of this, had this very similar upbringing to her. There's a wide cast of characters, and it's just kind of like a really good, fun, feel-good Christmas book that's set on a Christmas movie. But it's also them filming in like July. So it's like warm out. There's like fake snow and everything else, and like Santa is owls. But essentially it was just a fun read. Honestly, book 1, book 2, both of them are good. They can be read as standalones. So you don't necessarily need to read A Merry Little Meet Cute before you read A Holly Jolly Ever After. However, I would kind of recommend it. They do kind of refer back to some of the characters who are in book 1 and book 2, and they do make an appearance as well. So can't hurt to read both. But yeah, it was a quick little easy 3-star read for me. So after A Holly Jolly Ever After, I dove into the book that I was looking forward to reading. You know, I basically talked about it nonstop, but I read Iron Flame. So this book actually came, I have the Kindle version as well as a physical copy, obviously, of it. I essentially, the minute the Kindle version downloaded, started reading it, and then stalked my email, essentially, to find out when I got the notification that this got delivered. I also got the Fourth Wing special edition as well, because I didn't have it beforehand. So I essentially stalked the mail till this came, and then started reading on this. I have a full reading vlog of Iron Flame and all my thoughts on it and everything linked. I'll link it here for you guys as well, and it's posted a couple weeks back. But so I won't go into it too much, and I really want to stay away from spoiling it, just because Iron Flame does pretty much continue right where Fourth Wing stops. So there's a lot that happens. The first like 100 or 200 pages of this book honestly is a bit of an information dump. Like, so much happens in the book, and you meet so many new characters because they're in a new place, that I truly was like, what is going on? I was so confused, in a good way. Like, I was following what was happening, and I knew that she was meeting people and things were happening, but it just was like, wait a minute, who was this character again? And yeah, a lot of information gets dumped. You get a lot of world building, which we didn't actually get a lot of in Fourth Wing. So I think Fourth Wing kind of hooks you in. Iron Flame explains a lot for a good like chunk of the book. And then, especially when you get to part 2, things start picking up. If it's not obvious, this was a 4-star read for me. I loved it. I'm actually going back and listening to the audiobook of it now, just because I need a little bit of, like, so much happens in the book, just like was in Fourth Wing, that I needed to go back and kind of rehear it again and see what is happening. I have theories about what is going to happen in book 3, which I don't think we're getting for another like yearish at this point. I would be shocked if it comes out in 6 months. Again, I do think Rebecca Yarros did say that she both has not started the book yet and also needs time to sleep and kind of like recuperate. So I actually don't think we're getting book 3 for quite a while. But yeah, I loved it. Iron Flame was great. The only problem was, after I read Iron Flame, I had like the biggest book hangover. Like, I could not read anything. I tried picking up a book and just really could not get into it. I was struggling to read. I just couldn't get into anything. I actually ended up rereading a book that I read earlier in the year. I think it's called Offside Hearts. Hold on, let me double check that. I don't think that's actually the name of the book. No, it is. So I reread a book, Offside Hearts, which is like a cute little hockey romance, and actually ended up changing my thoughts on the book. So at first I thought it was too long. Rereading it, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. But I needed something that I knew to go back to, and that was lighthearted, that I could just kind of like breeze through, and I already knew everything that was happening in the book, to kind of like try and break out of that funk after Iron Flame. After that, I started reading 10 Things That Never Happened by Alexis Hall. So I don't think I've ever talked about an Alexis Hall book on this channel, but he writes these really funny rom-coms that are set in the UK. The characters always seem to be getting into some sort of mess, and 10 Things That Never Happened did not disappoint. So I rated it 3 stars, as it kept me thoroughly entertained from start to finish. And essentially it's about a manager of a Bed Bath and Beyond in the UK, like whatever the UK version of that is, who doesn't necessarily love his job, but he feels like he could stay in that job long term. So he thinks that he's doing great in his job. He's like, I'm the best manager ever. And then his manager and the owner of the company, Jonathan Forrest, is like, you suck. And he finds him insufferable. They have like a nickname for him that's like the biggest dickhead ever. Like, people don't like this man. And Sam gets called to London for a meeting with Jonathan and ends up being fired. So immediately after he is fired, they're in like one of the showrooms, and Jonathan fires him, and he ends up backing up into this shower stall and falling, and the shower, like this like 10-pound shower thing, like falls on him. And he bumps his head, so he does what the only reasonable thing is to do, and fake amnesia. So he pretends that he has not a clue what is going on in the world. He knows his name, he has a good idea of who his boss is, he knows where he lives, but he does not remember getting fired or anything else. They do confirm that he has a concussion. The amnesia, of course, is questionable, and he gets released into Jonathan's care. So then he ends up living in Jonathan's house with him, like a good 3-4 hours away from where his store is and where he lives. He then ends up growing closer to Jonathan as well, and as Sam tries to recover from like this fake amnesia, he also starts to realize that, you know what, Jonathan's not that bad, and he kind of ends up loving him in a way, and he has all these quirks, and he starts seeing kind of beneath that hard shell of who he is, and Jonathan kind of like endears himself to Sam, but Sam is still worried because Jonathan did fire him, had threatened to fire the rest of his team, I should say, and thinks Sam just like doesn't know what's going on. So it goes from there. There's a lot of like impulsive things that he does. It's quite funny, and just it keeps you entertained from start to finish. And of course it's a romance book, so it ends on a happy ever after, or a happy for now, I should say. But I really enjoy Alexis Hall's books. One thing I don't talk about a lot is I actually like a lot of books that are written by UK authors or that are set in the UK. It's something about their style of writing that really kind of speaks to me, and I find it very witty and fun, and 10 Things That Never Happened was perfect for me. Okay, and then we have the 1-star book. So I'm going to try and be really nice with this one because I did actually get an advanced reader copy of this, and I thought it would be cute, and as part of my kind of reading slump after Iron Flame, I finally picked it up. And you know, I like sports romances. Like, I will read just about any romance that is set in a sports setting. That's pretty much okay for me. I actually read a lot of hockey romances, even though I'm actually not a hockey fan. But The Cutting Edge by Lisa Daly was not it. I really struggled with this one. it just was not giving anything, and it very much was like just not good at all. So what I read was actually very different than the synopsis. So I was expecting a story about Logan Rivers, star pro hockey player. He plays for like this NHL team, which is a key point here, NHL team, and who is in a bit of a slump because he hasn't scored in a couple days or in a couple games, and Bella is a competitive figure skater who strikes a deal with an assistant coach to secretly pretend to be a curse breaker for Logan. But what I got instead was a story about Coco, who I guess is also Bella, is what I figured out like halfway through this book, that Coco and Bella are the same person. Because she's introduced as Coco for a few chapters, and then all of a sudden her name's Bella, and then randomly is referred back to as Coco. That was fun. And Logan, and this entire story is set in a hospital. Like, this is a story that is set in a hospital. She's on the ice maybe once the entire time. There is like no real hockey. Like, it all happens in a hospital pretty much. So yeah, if it's not obvious, I really didn't like this. It's not a long book, as it's less than 300 pages long, but it felt longer to me than reading like Iron Flame, which was like 700 pages. Like, I struggled through every single moment of this, and quite honestly, I should have DNF'd it at the like 10% mark. Like, when I was reading it and thought I was like pretty much done this book and it was only 10% in, I was like, I should have just bailed. So I actually don't know why I stuck through it, but actually I do. I hit this point where I wanted to know if it was going to get better, to be honest, or how it was going to get worse. But it's told in dual point of views, and both characters are just like super cringy. Like, Coco / Bella is actually Logan's daughter's skating coach, so he's a single dad. And when he's late for pickup one day, she takes his daughter Poppy to the practice rink, and Logan is practicing by himself and accidentally shoots a puck at her head. She ends up in the hospital. Logan feels guilty. She falls instantly in love. He literally falls instantly in love with her. And she shares how she's a lucky charm for the U.S. skating team, because essentially whenever she talks about how she came in 4th place at the Olympics and how that is kind of like on trend for her. So whenever she has like a poor skate or a panic attack before she goes and skates, the team as a whole, everyone else on the team has like really good skates. And then this is the part that just kind of sent me because I was so confused. The team as a whole ends up winning the team gold, but she loses. And I'm like, I don't think in figure skating there's like an overall gold medal for the team. I thought it was only individual, but in this instance, they go to the Olympics, they win. Like, USA wins team gold, and then they also have like all the individual medals for all the individual programs, I guess. Yeah. So Logan starts doing better on the ice as he spends time with her, because he keeps coming in, like, visiting her every single, like, in all his free time. He visits her in the hospital, and because he feels so guilty and wants to make sure she's okay. So he goes back and, like, starts winning games, and then she gets really mad at him when she realizes that she can't work with a head injury, and she also can't skate for a while. So she starts getting, like, mad at him and starts, like, doesn't talk to him at all. And then an assistant coach for the team comes and is like, hey, he performs well when he's talking to you. You're his lucky charm, so can you start talking to him again? We will pay you to continue having conversations with him and just kind of, like, be around, and from there, like, just get him through so the team can go to the can go to the Stanley Cup and hopefully win. We find out while reading this towards the end that he actually proposed this to the team manager, to the assistant coach, and he is the one paying her for it. So, I mean, he just buys her. But whatever. I just think there's a lot of potential here with this book, and it just is so poorly executed. Like, errors aside, like, there were some pretty big things. Like, there was misspellings, there's repeated paragraphs. Like, it felt like I was reading a very unedited book. Like, it shouldn't even hit reader copy, advanced reader copy book. This was, like, unedited. Because things were repeated, and you'd get, like, the same paragraph, like, in different places, or, like, very similar paragraphs covering the same thing, and the story would restart. There was a lot wrong. Like, all those things aside, there was a lot wrong with this book. So, like I said, I should have DNF'd this around, like, the 10%, 25% mark. But I just kept reading it out of hope that it would get better, and it never did. Like, I was so confused throughout. And like, another point, like, she's training to go to the Olympics, and the Olympics are either being held in Milan or Madrid. And, like, I say this because it literally flip-flops between which country she is going to the Olympics in the same year. Like, not like, oh, maybe I'll go to this one or the next one. It's like the same year, like, upcoming Olympics is in Milan/Madrid. And to the point that reading it, I actually was like, Milan is in Italy and Madrid is in Spain. Because I was trying to figure out if it was in, like, the same country at one point, and it made me feel stupid. But Milan is in Italy and Madrid is in Spain. And then I was like, does Madrid get cold enough? Because eventually we settle on Madrid. That's where the Olympics are being held in the following year. Like, there's a point in the book where she only refers to going to Madrid, so I guess that's where we're going. And I seriously questioned if Madrid ever gets cold enough to, like, host a Winter Olympics. So there was that. So just, like, minor errors that I really do think, like, a copy editor or, like, an editor would have really helped with, because it just pulled me right out of the story when I was like, I don't understand what's happening here. Like, this makes no sense to me. Like, I couldn't even suspend my imagination with it, because this was supposedly, like, set in our world and our reality, and I was like, what is going on? Like, this makes no sense to me. So yeah. So that was my 1-star read that pretty much just, like, I couldn't do it. So after that, I read Cleat by Meryl Wilsner. It's actually a sapphic rivals to lovers rom-com that is set in the soccer world. So yet another sports romance, and it was a 3-star read for me. I enjoyed it from start to finish. Like, there's a lot that happens in it, but it was actually a very enjoyable read. I really liked the story for it. So it follows 2 soccer teammates who are at odds before falling in love as their team gears up for the World Cup. So you have Grace Henderson, who has been the star of the US soccer team for a decade now. She first joined the team when she was 16, and she very much is, like, the veteran on the team. And then there is Phoebe Matthews, who is this new upstart who's just, like, bold and everything that Grace is not. So she's a jokester, she loves to be the class clown. Like, she's just the exact opposite of Grace, who's very, like, buttoned up and this is what needs to be done, and, like, gets it. And to a certain degree, Grace has lost the fun in playing soccer, because there has been, as star of the team, there is so much other things that come with that. So she has to do press, she has to do interviews with people, she's always aware of, like, the pressure on top of her, and she's not captain of the national team, but she is the captain of kind of like a local team, a team in New Orleans that Phoebe has also been drafted to play on. So you have kind of the dynamics of the national team, and then you have this New Orleans club team that she's also playing with, and no matter what she does, she can't seem to get away from Phoebe. So from there we have Phoebe and Grace. They kind of start doing things together, and Grace quickly finds herself kind of spending more and more time with Phoebe. As much as she doesn't want to, she's, like, volunteering to do things. They have, like, these little bets that they're all constantly, like, betting each other. And then after one daring kiss, Grace finds that she's hooked. After one daring kiss, Phoebe finds that she's hooked on Grace, and she's just like so in love with her, and Grace is everything that Phoebe has been waiting to find, but Grace doesn't seem to be kind of like on the same page as her. They eventually start like a friends with benefit relationship, and as the World Cup approaches, all of a sudden Grace is injured and it's unsure whether or not she will actually, they're saying that like team trainers and everything are saying that she's going to make the team, but Grace is unsure about that. And it does make sense essentially that Phoebe would fill Grace's spot. So there's a little bit of like tension there as well from Grace's side, and you know, they're catching feelings the entire time. So while they're off the field, Grace is worried that she is going to catch feelings for Phoebe, while Phoebe is like 100% convinced that they're dating. And quite honestly, when I was reading this, I questioned this at one point, because I was like, aren't they like, she said girlfriend, did I miss something here? But that's kind of like a big crux of the tension for them, and soon they realize that they care more about their relationship than making the roster. So quite honestly, all of that was in the synopsis. I did not spoil anything there. So I didn't spoil anything with that. That was all literally in the synopsis of this book. There's a lot of representation in this book, which I really liked. Lots of LGBTQ representation. There's also a lot of representation across like different races. And then I also really liked how like neurodivergencies are represented as well. So Grace frequently talks about how she has a sister who has ADHD, which is something that later on we discover that Phoebe actually has as well, and Grace is like kind of really good at kind of like talking about that. It's not fully discussed, it's kind of hinted at in the book at one point, but it's heavily hinted at one point. But Grace seems to be autistic as well, which like I definitely was picking up as I was reading. There's a couple things that she says or does that are like, that seems like autism. But yeah, so essentially, like, I loved it. It was a cute book. My only one thing was it is told entirely in third person and was so confusing for me. Like, I actually had a sticky note as I was reading this that said Grace Henderson and then her nickname beside it, and was like, she's 26 years old, she's the captain of the team, like that. And then I had Phoebe Matthews, sometimes called by her last name. This is her nickname, this is who she is. Because honestly, when they were like, you spend so much time like reading it, I could not track at certain times like who we were with and who we were talking about in the story in third person, which I don't really struggle with so much in like first person kind of like dual point of view books. And there's a lot of internal monologuing as well, which I think didn't help and kind of like made it difficult for me. All that being said, it was still a 3-star book. Like, I really was like, is this a 2-star because you really struggled to read this, or is it a 3-star? And I ended up settling on 3 stars for it because I did enjoy it. It was a cute story. I was excited to know what happened next. So just in terms of overall enjoyment, it was a 3-star read for me. Okay, so I'm just editing this now, and I think it needs to be pointed out that I realized after filming this that while I was reading Cleat, I actually think I had a concussion. I randomly like hit my head. I was unloading the dishwasher and I forgot I had a cabinet open and like smacked like my eye kind of right here on it, and had like this radiating pain like all across my forehead. And honestly, I had a headache that I still have it, but it lasted like, I'm like on day 5, day 6 now of this headache, of just like throbbing pain. And I started reading Cleat during that time, and just now I'm starting to realize that maybe I actually have a concussion. So that could explain why it was so hard for me to like literally track like point A to point B and who the characters are. And truly one of the things that's cluing me into the fact that I might have a concussion is the fact that I'm even like filming that. I struggled to track things like what was happening in a story and what I wanted to say. So yeah, I think I'm concussed. I think I could not follow a third person point of view book because I have a concussion. So yeah. Okay, So the books I'm looking forward to reading in December. So first up I have The Wake Up Call by Beth Leary. I actually don't remember if this was one of my books that I wanted to read in November. It might have been, but after Iron Flame I just like could not read anything and really struggled. So The Wake Up Call by Beth Leary follows two hotel receptionists who are like really, their hotel is struggling through the holiday season. Like they're just not doing well and it might actually close, and they managed to track down this person who happened to lose a ring in the hotel, and they return it to them and they end up getting this huge reward from it. And they start to realize that maybe like if they go through the hotel safe and all this stuff, these valuables that are left behind, and return it, maybe they'll get enough reward money back from people possibly to like pay off everything and like save the hotel and everything that's going on. And they don't like each other, so it is very much like an enemy to lovers romance as well. But Beth Leary wrote a book that I really loved last year, so I definitely very much am like a fan of her writing and her books. So yeah, so looking forward to that. I also have I went to Indigo the other day and I picked up It Happened One Christmas by Chantel Guertin. So it's about Zoe Andrew, who lives and breathes Christmas. She loves everything about the season, and after years of directing countless holiday movies, she certainly knows her way around a festive tale. So when she finally gets the chance to bring her own script to life, she isn't about to let anything or anyone stand in her way. Not even the stupidly sexy, utterly frustrating, plaid-clad tree farmer Benoit Deschamps. Moonlighting as mayor of Chelsea, the cozy Quebec hamlet at the center of Zoe's screenplay, Ben Mattingly refuses to grant her film a permit in his enchanting town. With just 4 days left before Christmas, Zoe must change Ben's mind, but not before an unscripted ice storm leaves them stranded in the middle of nowhere with nothing except each other. Will Ben's chilly resolve shatter Zoe's Christmas movie wish, or will Zoe be able to meet his stubbornness and maybe even his heart? So I love this. It's set in a Canadian town. I actually know where Chelsea, Quebec is. Like I used to live really close to there. I love like that it's a grumpy tree farmer and this like relentlessly optimistic film producer. It very much is giving like Hallmark Christmas movie, which is what I want when I'm reading like a holiday book, especially like a holiday romance. It just looks cute. So I picked this up. I will definitely be reading it in December. And then I also picked up 3 Holidays and a Wedding. The front is just super cute. It says 3 times the magic, 3 times the chaos. So it is by Uzma, Jalaluddin, and Marissa Stapley. So it's actually 2 authors. I also really like books that are written by 2 authors. Usually when you get like that dual point of view, you get kind of like that nice kind of different styles and jump between the two, because they are 2 different people writing them. So it's just As Strangers and Seatmates, Miriam and Aziz and Anna Gibson. So as strangers and seatmates, Miriam, Aziz, and Anna Gibson fly to Toronto over the holidays. Miriam to her sister's impromptu wedding, and Anna to meet her boyfriend's wealthy family for the first time. Neither expect that severe turbulence will scare them into confessing their deepest hopes and fears. At least they'll never see each other again. And the love of Miriam's life safe wasn't sitting 2 rows behind them, herring it all. Oops. An emergency landing finds Anna safe, Miriam, and her sister's entire bridal party snowbound at this quirky Snowfalls Inn in a picture-perfect town where fate has Anna's actor crush filming a holiday romance. As Miriam finds the courage to open her heart to safe, and Anna feels the magic of being snowbound with an unexpected new love, both women soon realize there's no place they'd rather be for the holidays. Again, this just screams like Christmas movie. I could just see it, like, you know, the plane going down, emergency landing, they're stranded somewhere, she's like falling in love with some actor who's also there as well, and like another one's love is like 2 seats back. Like it's cute. So excited to dive into this one as well. I actually didn't realize when I was picking it up, but both of them are actually set in Canada, which is kind of nice. So, and I believe both are Canadian authors as well. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to reading this month. I plan really just to like keep it light and go from there. I have so much happening in December, so I figure 3 books Anything other than that is a bonus. So that is everything that I read in November. Please let me know if you have read any of these books. If there's anything you actually suggest that I add to my to be read pile. What is your favorite like holiday book? Because I am desperately in need of reading some more, and I think it's probably one of my favorite things to read kind of at the end of the year. So let me know in the comments below. Till next time, have a good day.